Welcome to Go For Side Effects. I'm your host, Kevin Simon. You all know my co-host, John. Today, we got Mitch Turner. How you doing today, Mitch?
Doing real good. Doing real good.
You know, Mitch is in the Air Force, which I apologize. But
Mm.
anyway, come from a Navy guy, along with the Army. I was going to get the first jab in on this one, so
Yeah.
I just want all y'all to know. Mitch, go ahead and tell everybody when you served, about what time frame you were in, and all that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I'll tell everybody else what I told you is I just found your podcast about a month ago. I think it's been a godsend for me because I want to talk with more people that have the same issues and problems and feelings that I do, and it's hard to find Gulf War veterans out there, and this has been perfect. Some of the things that have been shared on your shows so far, I can certainly relate to, and some of the nuances of health issues that I have that are I would consider minor compared to the other health issues I have. I hear other people talking about them on your show, and it's like, oh, so they have that same thing. I guess that's related to it all too. But anyway, I was in the Air Force Reserves. I was only ever reserves. I served in the Air Force Reserves from 1987 to 1993. I was in a security police unit out of Bergstrom Air Force Base, which is now the municipal airport in Austin. I was mostly a college student during that time, and I got called up just for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So from the end of December 1990 through the beginning of April 91 was when I served, and I was in the UAE at the time. Our particular security police squadron of about 44 guys were responsible for guarding tanker aircraft, the KC-135 super tankers that refueled all the planes in the air and kept those going. So as you can imagine, with all the sorties that were being flown, a lot of fuel going in and out of the area that we were protecting. And another odd thing, they told us in our briefings on the way over that in the UAE, about 70% of the people in the UAE aren't from the UAE. They're from the other Arab nations around, including Iraq, the people we're going to war with. And that was the same for the police department that we were working with. And so it was a little bit, you didn't know whether you could trust them or not at the beginning. Looking back on it, I felt I made some friends, on the other side of the fence there. We were on one side of the fence with our M16s and M60 and other stuff, and they were on the other side with their AK-47s and probably about 5 bullets between all of them. And they hadn't been trained much. And then there was one gate that was a little bit remote where all the service members came through, and there was like 6 or 7 of the UAE policemen there and one UAE Army guy, which was kind of like their version of Barney Fife. And I'm not sure they gave him any bullets, but their job was to check the British and any of the UAE personnel. And there were a lot of workers there building buildings right next to us, which was another issue for security. And then I was responsible, or whoever was on duty at that post at the time was to check any of the Americans that came in through that gate. But we worked 12-hour shifts. We had 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and then on the 7th day of the week, whichever that fell for you, you got to go back out to the desert as you're on your day off.
Oh, yay.
Do some laundry and stay in the tent. The tent that is strategically located at the very end of the runway where all the F-16s are taken off. And I don't know why they kick in the afterburners over there. They didn't do that over here.
Wait a second. Air Force guy had to spend the night in a tent?
Yeah, we had a tent. Yeah.
Really?
We had a tent. Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, it was actually better than the portable building that was built that we were crammed into at the end of the airport. And we had to share a bathroom with the fire station. I don't know if you guys remember the types of toilets, if they're even called that, in the bathrooms over there. But it's like the hole in the floor.
The hole in the ground, yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin wouldn't know anything about that.
Nope,
with the water. Yeah. Well, there was with the water hose that you grab with your right hand, and
Right hand.
yes, that's why you never shake their left hands or anything.
Yeah.
That funny story, that one gate that had all the Arab policemen at it, we had a left-handed guy that was working there one morning. They were sharing food with him, and they would tear off that pita bread and then reach over and grab some nasty stuff and then eat it. And he did that with his left hand in front of all of them, and kind of ruin the meal for everybody. But you learn a lot about them. But anyway, we also provided security for the convoys going back and forth between Al Minhad and Dubai. And they made us wear these blue jumpsuits because they didn't want the local people to see our BDUs, our uniforms. They didn't want it to look like
really
there was foreign military in UAE. So they kind of hid us from them, although we kind of stuck out, so that was pretty much the service. Now, if you talk about, like the issues and health issues that I had, there was no reason that I should have been exposed to oil well fires. You wouldn't think chemical weapons. The only thing that I would thought, and I've been thinking this early on, when I began to have the health issues, and I got the thing in the mail from the VA that talked about Gulf War illness, the Gulf War Bulletin or whatever, and that was around 2010. But so it must have been the vaccines for me, and I know a lot of people are kind of anti-vax with the COVID vaccines and everything, but like Barbara Mandrell, I was anti-vax when anti-vax was uncool. So I've been anti-vax for a long time because of the fact I believe that's what a lot of my health issues are related to. The only other time that I believe I could have been exposed to some of the things that a lot of you were exposed to was on the way home. Had some weird things going on. We had a couple of guys that kind of went a little mental, and one of those was our commander. So our captain that was in charge of us, and really? He disappeared there towards the end. We never saw him. I thought he was going out partying with the emirs and the castles with the harems and things like that. And I don't want to speak, ill of him because, maybe he was dealing with some stuff, mentally related to the deployment, or maybe related to side effects of all the vaccines we got when we went over there. But we didn't have a way back home, but we had to stay there at the Dubai airport until all those tanker aircraft had flown home. And once they did, we could go back out to Al Minhad at the airbase. Well, when we got out there to the airbase, it was like that Arby's commercial, where the guy's standing downtown and nobody's around. Everybody left, and they left us there. And there were no U.S. Air Force planes in there anymore. So we broke up, what was left of us into smaller groups, and I had a great Master Sergeant Billy Wise that went and negotiated us a hitch a ride on a UAE Air Force C-130. So that was exciting to sit in the web seating with the big jet engine that was being transported in there. And then they flew us to Dhahran, the big hub where I think most everybody flew in and out of to get into the theater, unless you went to Riyadh or something. And there, all of us in my little security police squadron, the few of us that made it there, and we came in different groups. Others came later. Some had beat us there, hitching rides on other kinds of aircraft. All the Army was coming through there, and all their equipment, all their uniforms, all their gear, and these Northwest Airlines 747s would pull up, and every time one would pull up, well, we'd jump up, get ready to go. And then they just took all the Army guys, and flew them on the 747s back home. Well, that went on for like 26 hours before we actually got a ride back. And we got a ride on a C5, again, with the equipment in there, sharing the space with us, and us breathing whatever may have been on all that equipment, whether it was DU, chemicals. So see, this is the only place I think in that hangar or around there that I might have been exposed to some of those toxins that were being brought back, that at the time they told us there wasn't any, right? There was no chemical weapons, but we know there now there was. Yeah, I know. But it's mostly Army guys. I know Marines had to have gone through there too, because we got to talking with the local security police there. They're actually, after so many hours, they took us over to the chow hall, let us eat a meal instead of just eating MREs in the hangar. And they had these amnesty boxes. I don't know if y'all remember amnesty boxes. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
John knows.
What the hell is an amnesty box?
Well, if you were to come across something that probably wouldn't make it through customs when you got back home, you need to leave it in the amnesty box, and it's a don't ask, don't tell situation. So the reason I know it must have been at least one Marine that came through there is because the local security police told us that someone had put an arm in there from an Iraqi soldier, an arm. And I know it's an arm from an Iraqi soldier. I mean, there were other like AK-47s and stuff and stuff they were putting in there and other stuff. But this guy, he said somebody put an arm in there. So I know that wouldn't have been, someone in the Army. It had to be a Marine that did something like that. That just sounds like something that they would do. And there's not a Marine here to defend themselves. So that's another reason I'm going to pick on them right now. But hey, if that Marine is actually listening today, I would like to talk with you. I really want to find out what you were thinking you were going to do with that when you got back home. Like the next time you shot a deer and went to the taxidermist, were you like going to say, hey, what can you do with this arm? Like show like it's hugging this deer that I just shot. I don't know what they were thinking.
But was it the left or the right?
Jesus.
I don't know. I didn't see it. I didn't see it myself.
Was it the left or the right?
I didn't see it myself, so I couldn't check under the fingernails or anything like that.
That is a morbid thought process.
I was just wondering because I mean they wipe with it, they don't.
Yeah. So anyway, I got kind of off there, but anyway, so maybe I had gotten some exposures there. Other than that, I don't see how I could have, except for the massive amounts of jet fuel that were being brought in. And we're like checking the trucks. BP, British Petroleum, was bringing those trucks in, filling up the tanker aircraft, and then during the air war part of it, which lasted a while, those planes were like coming and going all day, all night, and refueling. And there were a lot of fumes because they put, right next to all that stuff. And there was a helipad, like right next to us also. And there were a couple of window units they had in that building. And I ended up getting a in my ear. And if you guys remember, where what was his Chekhov or whatever his name was, had that thing pulled out of his ear. It was something like that. I mean, it was black with some white fuzz on it. And the doc got in there with like a knitting needle and scraped around and then pulled this big thing out.
No.
And then I got the standard issue 800 milligrams of ibuprofen.
Of course.
Welcome to that. Welcome to VA.
Yeah, and probably whatever the antibiotic of the day was. I just don't remember. So I think that the really loud tinnitus I have over here, I don't know if y'all can hear it. You hear it?
Yeah.
It's pretty loud. It's probably from that, but it's in both ears. But anyway, so not very good conditions. That's why I said it was a treat to go out to the desert, to the tent, especially when they had the beer tents. Somebody said on a previous show. Now y'all heard this before.
What the hell, a beer tent? What
beer tent
shit is that?
Well, somebody y'all had on here, and I just listened to him. He was the Afghanistan vet. He'd mentioned he got to go, to an Air Force base over there in Qatar or something. Excuse me, where they had beer tents, and they got 3 little tickets, coupons, so you could have 3 beers a day. And that's if they took your ticket every time. Yeah, of course, they got to keep that hidden from all the other, Arab people that were
I don't know
on the
where
base.
in Sam hell. Now, Kevin, to talk about going on shore and going to an establishment and getting alcohol. And I can remember exactly maybe twice we had something that was alcohol and you could barely stand to drink it, but you did because it was indeed homemade hooch. And but no beer.
That sounded like some of the meat I was eating.
That's because you're Army.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had that. Now you're gonna love this. I think reservists bring a National Guard because they're doing other types of jobs, as their normal day jobs most of the time. I think they bring in different perspectives that are very helpful. Like when we first landed, we landed at a place called Al Sharjah. It was all Air Force Reserve base, and they had built miniature golf courses. I mean, it was nice. And I remember thinking when I first got there, I was like, dang, this is going to be nice. It's going to be real nice. So for a week we were there, like putting up tents. I don't think I ever played putt golf, but they had, like the sand volleyball all set up and stuff, and nice little chow hall. And then they moved us out to Al Minhad. I mean, it was like really, it was, rude of them to do that. But anyway, but that was a difference between an active duty Al Minhad kind of run base and a reservist base. And the tanker aircraft that we were guarding were Pennsylvania Air National Guard. Great guys. They flew home, picked up a bunch of weights and brought them back. We set it up next to the fire station where we borrowed their bathroom and shared their bathroom for a while. And so we were able to work out and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I don't know, active duty could get away with shit like that. So,
how freaking long were you in country?
What's that?
How long were you in country?
So it was like 3.5 months or something like that. So at the end of
And
December.
you had time wow. I don't know.
Yeah.
That must be the whole Air Force. I
think it's even more because it's reservists too.
Well, John,
now the security police unit that I was in, most of them had been active duty before as security police, or we had some Marines, like a Vietnam vet Marine that was in with us that had joined the unit. A lot of them, we had like the special agent in charge of the state treasury was in our unit. We had in Texas, and we had like a couple of 3 or 4 Austin PD, Travis County jailers, sheriff's department. We had the Huntsville prison, Texas Department of Corrections, a couple of guys that worked there as their full-time job.
Right
So,
by me now.
and this is after their active duty, tours that they did. And so we had a lot of experience there. Now, we in the reserves, the one thing we don't get is good equipment. We get whatever's handed down to us. And the M16s that we had were probably the first ones ever used, like in Vietnam. And they're probably, just as reliable.
They give you enough bullets?
Oh, we had plenty of bullets. So we could jam it
up really
we
easy.
we could jam it 240 times if we needed to.
Well, hold on. I want to bring back the weights. I want to go back to that.
Okay.
I mean, because on my ship, we had a weight room, but
yeah.
I feel bad for John because out there they were lifting sheep and curling sheep every day to make sure and lifting up camels, right?
We were moving freaking tents. I mean, I was in a construction engineer battalion, so we moved
sandbags.
We were moving a lot of food and equipment. I never lifted no damn weights.
Oh no!
I had like 2 sips of alcohol when I was there.
Hey, no, I know what you're saying, Kevin, because when I was in Dhahran at that hangar, I looked outside and kind of walked around a little bit, and there was an Army guy there with the sheep, but he said that he was just trying to help it through the barbed wire fence. And I don't know if that's what he was doing or not, but
wow.
I love it. So, oh my gosh. I love that.
Just trying to help it through the fence. You got stuck in the fence. Okay.
John said, damn it, guys, come on. Everything. I don't know.
Well, anyway, hey, let's talk about, let me talk about, I made some notes here because I told you I was going to forget stuff. And as I told John, I don't think you were on earlier, told Kevin earlier, I said, I'm a little bit self-conscious about, speaking, when calls with people and stuff, because I routinely lose my train of thought. But after listening to enough of your episodes here,
all the time,
I know I'm in good company, and everybody y'all and everybody you have on is the same way, right? Those things are just getting worse.
All right, so
kind of the history.
I want to get into the history of what you went through with the VA. And what you're going through till today, because this is where we're going to get into the more exciting stuff, everybody. I mean, I've heard the stories, but we're getting into it now.
Hey, well, let me get down the road a little bit here, and then I know you want me to share that one story, which I'm going to regret, and I know it's out on the internet. It's on the internet. It's there forever. So, but you know what? These are just bodily functions that a lot of us deal with. But first of all, I when I first came back, we were scheduled to get married. My wife and I, she was my high school sweetheart, so she knew me for 5.5 years before we got married and before Desert Storm, and then she's known me for the past 31 years.
Yeah, you
We've been
better say
married.
that right.
Yeah, I know. And but she noticed a marked difference in my behavior, my anxiety, my level of aggression, and things whenever I first came back. And while there were certainly stressors that occurred, like the dude throwing his bag under there thinking we're going to blow up or whatever, and several other things of working with people you're not sure if you could trust, and also not being able to properly secure the area because they wouldn't let us go out and set up where these buildings were being built right beside us. And I knew it only took one bullet to hit one tanker to blow up the whole end of the airport. But when I came back, I began to. We were in college at the time, married in college. I did complete my bachelor's degree. Even went on to get a master's in 1999. There's no way I could do that now. There's no way I could go to school now because of the issues that are happening. But it wasn't like I was going to hurt myself, but I felt like I was going to hurt somebody else because everybody was just pissing me off. I was like just really angry, really aggressive. And sometime around 1993, my wife said, you need to get some help, and enrolled me in this kind of outpatient program for depression, anxiety, and that's kind of where it started. So since like 93, I've been taking all the SSRIs, psychotropics, and things just to function and be stable. The level of anxiety that I have, it just continued to get worse. During COVID, that's really when it got really bad, and I had to do something, and that's whenever I started looking at let me revisit that VA thing again, because what I didn't know was that I actually had benefits through the VA, and so I want to share this, and I hope this helps some other maybe service members that were only reservists. And I don't mean it like only reservists, but just you had no active duty time, or you didn't serve for more than 180 days consecutively,
Right.
because that's like, and in fact, the first set of orders that I got, it said 179 days. So they know what they're doing. They just don't want to pay out the benefits and things like that. So I assumed, like with everything else, I just didn't get any benefits. But with the VA, it was different. I never pursued anything, and then in about 2010, I got one of those Veterans Administration bulletins, Gulf War bulletins in the mail, and just saying like, if you're suffering from this, and this, you might have this Gulf War syndrome, or whatever they were calling it at the time. And I remember looking at it, and then the symptoms weren't that bad, other than the high anxiety and a few other things. But I went down the list, and I was looking at it, and I was like, well, I got that. I was kind of joking about it. Well, fast forward now to 2022, it ain't funny anymore, because other things have come up and things have gotten worse, and it feels like they are exponentially getting worse. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I began to go through the claims process, and I didn't want to go ahead and switch my healthcare to the VA. Well, first of all, I couldn't until I had made a claim that there was something, at least one thing, that was service connected, and it had to be a certain percentage, and then I could get healthcare through the VA. And I was looking online, looking at Google videos and stuff, and I came across this company that kind of does that. It's a bunch of veterans that are also disabled, most of them, and they help you, fill these, all the process, file the claims and things like that. And I know a lot of veterans don't like to do that, and they kind of feel like, well, they're kind of vultures for doing that instead of doing it for free. But I did try calling like the Waco VA, look for a VSO. I had met with the one for the county here about something else previously, and there was such a long wait. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to fill any of this stuff out. So I got in touch with them, and it turns out pretty good. It's not as expensive as a lawyer. And you really only need the lawyer when you need the lawyer, right? When things are going south and you're getting turned down, or you go to a higher level review and you're still getting turned down, then you need an attorney to go represent you and slap some people around up there to get some sense into those people. But so far, this company has helped me file the claims. Probably the most important piece of this process, not just being able to get the claims part figured out and filing it online, is that I understand what's required now to have the greatest success, and I want to share that with everybody. There's 3 things that everybody needs whenever they go to file a claim. Number 1 is a diagnosis. So you got to have a doctor. You can't just say, I got this, and then go and start filling out forms and expect to have a successful C&P exam.
That's right.
So you need a diagnosis from a doctor, and you need to show the history, and you need to show that either it was due to, you have to show that it was due to a certain event, from your service. In a lot of cases, or not a lot, but some cases for us Gulf War veterans, there are presumptions that they just presume that if you've got this wrong with you, that it was because of the Gulf War. So that kind of helps there. So the diagnosis, number 1, the event that occurred in service that caused or made worse. It didn't even have to cause it. It might have been something that you had pre-existing, and whatever happened in the military made it worse. And then the third thing is this nexus to tie it together, or this independent medical opinion. That's the part I feel like a lot of people are missing, because I've listened to a few people, that you've had on your show that are having issues, and it sounds like, hey, I've got this, it's clear, it's in my records. I got 30 pages of these records I gave them. They can clearly see I have it, and they denied me. Well, you got to make it as easy as possible for them, and you got to use their lingo, you got to use their language. But they're not going to take your word for it as an independent medical opinion. They'll take your word for it that, this is what's wrong with you if you've seen a doctor and it's documented. But what is really helpful is if you can find a medical professional to write this nexus that ties those events together, beyond a reasonable doubt. And it has to be at least as likely as not. That's the phrase that they're looking for. When the C&P examiner or the VA claims person representative is looking at it, it needs to be at least as likely as not caused by your military service, caused or made worse. And that's just one of the phrases. The other things that need to be included in there are some of the things that they're looking for to actually help with the rating. Because Kevin, you'd mentioned you went in for tremors that time.
Yes.
And you got connected, but it was 0. Is that what it was the first time?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I got tremors too. Those came on later, and those are getting worse. And I've upped the medicine 3 times for that, and they continue to get worse. And it's not just in my hands anymore. I can start to feel the twitch in my neck and head that that's coming next. But you just want to take those C&P examiners or the VA representatives and say, hey, let's just go out to lunch. I'm going to take you to a Chinese food restaurant. And if you take them out to eat Chinese food, like if you got tremors like me, they're going to end up wearing more of that rice than you get into your stomach. So, you just kind of show them that. I mean, it is kind of sad. And I always joke about a lot of this stuff. And sometimes it's all you can do is joke about some of the issues that you have. But, on the tremors, definitely when I'm eating rice, I got to put my elbow on the table and bring my mouth to my fork to have the best chance of getting the most grains of rice into my mouth. Else I'm twitching and throwing it around everywhere. Now my kids pick on me every once in a while. We're a very competitive family. We were teaching them how to play dominoes here a couple of weeks back, a couple of my kids, and I was beating everybody at dominoes. I was just getting lucky. Usually my wife beats me. And I'm rubbing it in and everything. And I think it's my daughter. I don't know if it's my daughter or my son that's in college said, hey, well, let's play Jenga next. Well, hey, I can't play Jenga. They know I can't play Jenga. I can't even set up Jenga. That's one of my worst nightmares, play Jenga. I look at it, tremors, there's no way I'm going to be able to play Jenga. There's that, other ways it affects you is, I mentioned this earlier before we got on the call, right? reaching into your medicine cabinet to get a prescription bottle to see if you can actually get one out without knocking about 4 or 5 others out of there, the shakes. It's just really annoying, right? So those are the things that you need to relay to the one doing the examination, the one that's doing your IMO, because what's going to be helpful also is not only that they at least as likely as not tie it to your service, and that well, I forgot what I was going to say there. See, losing train of thought.
Yeah, you were talking about
yeah, but also they need to you need to show them how it affects your life. And there is the form that you fill out, which is the 21-41-38. That's the statement in support of a claim. That's your message, right? That's the thing that you fill out. And in there, you need to tell them, what it was that happened and how it's affecting your life, now, and give them as much details as you can about how it affects your life, because that's what will help with your rating, to make sure they get the rating right. If they don't have enough information on really how it's affecting you, they really don't know how to rate you for these things. So you want to make sure and get that in there, those details.
Wild Branch is a truly pure cannabis oil. They make CBD containing 0 THC and no carrier oils. Use Wild Branch oils and salves to calm, cool, and soothe your body and leaving you pain-free. I know I've used it anytime that my feet burn because I have neuropathy real bad. When I use this product, this is a product I believe in. When you go to order, use promo code GWI22 for 22% off. GWI22 for 22% off is the promo code. Click the link below. Thank you. Now back to the show. Well, whenever I went in, when I went in this Monday, I didn't even have to tell her. She just immediately held my hands up, and she looked, and then she noticed the nodding, and immediately she was like, "I think you need a Parkinson's test." and she was like, she's like, something is going on. And so, but I think I may have figured it out, but we're going to get into that a little bit later when we get into the medications part of it. But it affects your family life.
Yep.
It affects, your work and your friendship, because a lot of people don't understand. And that's what this show is. This show is to help families deal with it, help other service member come out and say, "Hey, look, yes, I got this." Yep. There's other people out there now. Hey, I have this, but how do we get connected with it? And there's several great ways, and that's one of them. A Nexus letter.
Exactly, and also the lay statement. So that is the 21-10-210 lay witness statement, also referred to as a buddy letter. People have heard it referred to as a buddy letter. The buddy can be your wife. In fact, my wife filled out the buddy letter when it came to the history of the anxiety, because she had known me before and she knew me after I returned. And she's very familiar with the ways that this has affected our relationship together and continues to affect our relationship together. And so I think by the time I got all this in, I did have a good independent medical opinion from a clinical psychologist that asked a bunch of questions. She was on the phone with me for over an hour. And she's working on my behalf, to capture everything and ask me the appropriate questions so that she can write down, what my issues are and, how this affects my life. And even through other counseling and stuff from the past, no one's ever really done that before. So I really appreciated what she was able to do there and capturing those things. And then, she would catch key phrases, I would say, and I've got it printed out right here, just so I could share this. But like when we were talking, she wrote here that he also described a loving relationship with his wife, but noted she has had to learn to deal with the way that I am. And those are in quotes. And that's exactly what my wife would tell you. She's just had to get used to, how I have a tendency to withdraw, not want to be around people, and not talk to her, and not share with her. And so it's important that all that is captured, and that you've got, again, somebody, a doctor, medical professional for all of these, that you have a nexus or independent medical opinion. Now that was a pretty extensive one. I've got a couple other independent medical opinions where I went for the chronic fatigue and sharing what went on there. And a doctor asked me a bunch of questions, and he's got, phrases in here like, what was it? Okay. My symptoms are daily, nearly constant, and activity level is at least 50% decreased from the previous pre-symptom activity level. If you look in the CFR 38 under chronic fatigue and the ratings, that particular phrase is actually in there for a rating at 60%, which is what I was given. But it's because he knew how to do that, right? So that's the key. You got to find these doctors that are willing to do this and know how to write it appropriately, and you do have to pay them. But in my opinion, whatever I've paid out is I wouldn't be getting anything otherwise. And again, I started out, I'm not doing this for the money. First of all, I wanted the government to admit that my problems were caused by them, and there is something called Gulf War illness, and I've got it. I've got all these different things that are wrong with me that I share with all of you guys. And I wanted that kind of admission of guilt, and you know how that's going to work. You don't really get that. I do have on the IBS, it does say that it was due to environmental factors of the Gulf War. That's the only time that it said that on anything that I've got. That's the only place it actually says Gulf War, environmental things for Gulf War. Is that what your IBS
well,
says?
believe it or not, that was written in 1995 for me, almost exactly like that. Yeah. Not only for my my digestive system, but also for my kidneys.
Mm-hmm. So and you've scared me about your kidney stones too, and giving birth and everything like that. I had gallbladder issues long time back, and I was able to hang on to that gallbladder for another 10 years after my first hospitalization, thinking I was having a heart attack, till I figured out what a gallbladder attack felt like. And when I told the doctor that ended up taking out my gallbladder 10 years later, he said, well, normally I would say that all that natural stuff doesn't work, but I guess you proved me wrong. So if you haven't had your gallbladder out and you're having problems with kidney stones, there's something called stone-free tablets, and you can look those up on Amazon. It's just called stone-free, and it works for kidney stones and gallstones and gallbladder. My problem was I didn't stick with it. So please stick with it, and that could save you a lot of trouble. And I did figure out why God gave us a gallbladder. I know they say you can do without it, but if you like jalapenos and habaneros and a lot of spicy peppers, I'm pretty sure the gallbladder was in there to neutralize some of that, so that you're not regretting it 12 to 24 hours later.
I got a question. So I know that you and Kevin deal with tremors, and I think I probably ask every guest that because it's just curiosity to help other vets understand how things progress in your body. Now, your tremors, how long, if you know when, how long after you left for golf did you notice something was going tremor wise, your body in particular? You're talking about your hands. When did you notice that, and how has it progressed?
So that was one of the ones that came much later, like the anxiety and all that. Panic attacks, depression, that was pretty immediate. In fact, I think I had my first panic attack when I was actually in the UAE. When I had time to share all the details about that, but then the next thing was the fatigue. In high school, I played tennis. I didn't know I was going to be this big, or I'd have played football. But I played tennis, which is a very, you have to be pretty agile. You're always running and getting here and there in short periods of time, right? It's good aerobic cardiovascular workout. So I was in really good shape because of that. But it didn't take long for me to wear out there. You had to stay in shape. Well, I had to stay in shape while I was still in the reserves, right? Because you get tested every year. Not that it's that big of a test. But I noticed that was going down first, after the anxiety. The anxiety stuff, I didn't even really tie to this until I think probably till I got that bulletin, in the mail from the VA about Gulf War illness, and said, hey, well, maybe that's why the hell, because nobody else in my family is like this. And yeah, so the tremors came probably, I want to say probably 10 years ago. So 20 years after the Gulf War. So that's a long time. It's a long time, but it starts mild, right? When you're tired, my hands start to shake a little bit or whatever. But I was at a customer site. I was taking notes one day, and I was right. By the way, my handwriting, it was bad to begin with. It's not even legible now. I mean, it's bad. It's bad because I can't really control my hands and fingers that well. I mistype all the time. It takes me a lot longer to send an email or an IM, and there's a lot of misspellings because I give up, or trying to move the mouse and get it in the right place on the screen. It's like playing Missile Command. That would have worked good if I was playing Missile Command and tapping on it, and,
right,
stopping all those missiles from coming in. But it doesn't work too well at work. But I was trying to take notes, and I looked down, at my pad, and I know what I wanted to write. And I was telling my hand to write, and it wouldn't write. The pen was on the paper. My hand wasn't moving, and it wouldn't move.
Really?
And when I told the neurologist about that, whenever I went in eventually for the tremors, he said, "Oh, that's kind of a normal thing with these essential tremors." And he had a name for that. I forgot what the name was. It's probably written in one of these medical records somewhere where I had that instance. And then I think it's happened a couple of times since then, maybe not to that extent. It was really shocking and really worried me, when it happened, because I mean, you're sitting there telling your body to do something that normally it would do. It's kind of instinctively you could write and take notes, and my hand wouldn't move. It wasn't numb, it wasn't tingling or anything. I just couldn't move it. And so he said that was related also to this neurological, the tremor stuff or whatever. So, but yeah, that came on later. It was like 20 years later. And again, one thing I want to do here is hopefully give hope again to the people that it's 30 years now, and maybe you haven't taken the first step to try to make a claim, or maybe you made a claim and you were like me back then and didn't know anything, and then it didn't work out for you because you didn't do it right, because you didn't know how to do it, and you gave up. But I'm telling you, you can get this done. You can do this. And so you might need some help. If you can get a VSO or a VFW or somebody like that to help you and do it for free, that's awesome. For me, I'd like the service I was getting from this other company, because I would, if I didn't have them calling and bugging me at least weekly on, did I go to see the doctor? Did I make sure that diagnosis is there? That sort of stuff, and kind of keep me on track. It would have taken a lot longer. I never would have got it done.
Are you allowed to say the company name?
It's fine with me if you're okay with it.
I'm good with it.
It's VA Claims Insider. And you can find them on YouTube. That's where I started watching the YouTube videos.
Hey, I've seen them.
Yeah, and you'll also see, and they got a lot of good stuff, articles on their website and stuff that it links to, and those videos are free. You can just go watch those videos, and you can learn a lot just from the videos. But I'll say this: I mean, if anybody needs any help with like the things that I've been service connected for that were presumptive, I feel like I could help you do that. And of course, I'm not going to charge anything. So if you need help with something like that and somebody wants to get in touch with me, maybe you can share my email address on this episode when you post it, Kevin, and I'd be more than happy to help anybody that I can. And that's why I'm on here. I feel like, some of the things that I've learned that I can share with you guys and help a bit.
Well, and we appreciate it, because Mitch, I got to tell you that there are so many. I actually I was calling some veterans up just to see how things were with them, just to talk to them a little bit. And I think one of the biggest problems out there is the very thing you're talking about, is how to proceed into doing anything for your claim. Understand, first of all, what the hell is going on with my body. And like you say, talking to a vet who's been there, because if you're talking to somebody who has not been to the Gulf or Afghanistan, or even, they can't put two and two together because they haven't necessarily had the opportunity to talk to a vet, but knowing how to move forward and get things going.
And I do feel like with all the improvements that have been made over the years with the VA, it's a lot easier now. And then probably God knew what he was doing by not, showing me this way back, because if I'd have tried it way back, I might have just given up and never looked at it ever again. And that may be where some of you folks that are listening right now are. And I'm here to tell you that, hey, I will help you. Give me a call. We'll get started. But one of the things that VA Claims Insider did for me also was they assign you a coach, and these are veterans too, and these have gone through the disability process. They know the language that needs to be used. They can also put you in touch with the medical professionals to get the IMOs for whatever condition you're looking for at a discounted rate than what they might normally charge the general public or whatever. Whatever they're able to increase your rating, that the money amount that they're able to increase, you don't pay them ahead of time. Just when that happens, you just show them what your new little rating thing is on that circle on the e-benefits, and whatever the amount of money difference was, and then they charge like 6 months. But if you have the means to prepay it, you can get a discount, just pay like 5 months. And there's a cap. So there's a certain cap that they want to charge you over so much. But again, I don't mind that, because they provided me a very valuable service. Again, with the anxiety that I have and the worry, and there's no way I could have done this on my own. And I pay an accountant to do my taxes. I got no problem. He's one of the more expensive accountants, but I'm able to sleep better at night because of it. I view this the same way. And also, these guys are disabled vets that some of them are just this is what they're doing to supplement their income, and helping others.
But on top of that too, because I watched some of the videos, and they even talk in there about, they don't want any false claims. They want everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll call it out too.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
that's what I like.
Yeah. Because it's not like they're out there like a ambulance chaser kind of law firm either, and just kind of trying to make up stuff just to have a little jackpot justice or whatever. No, they're there to help people. Everything you go through in the process, there's really not any way that you could kind of cheat and make things up, because you're actually, you have to have the evidence, diagnosis from a medical professional, and if you're really suffering from Gulf War illnesses, you got this in either private medical records, VA medical records, right, maybe even in your military medical records, depending on how long you stayed in,
or if they haven't been lost.
Well, I was going to say, of course, I'm like every other Gulf War veteran. There are no military medical records for me, because mine were misplaced like everyone else's. I do think I've got that little yellow vaccine card somewhere, and we're going to be moving in the next month, and I hope to God I can find it, because I want to go see what it says for those vaccines. They gave us a bunch of vaccines before we went over. So it was at Bergstrom. I don't know if it was the reserve unit or the active duty people there that were giving us the shots, but we were lined up, and I remember it vividly. The guy that was in front of me, his name's John Stover, real nice guy. He's a real sweet guy. He's like a big kid. He was like 30 at the time, and I was still like 21, 22, something like that. He loved guns, just a real nice guy, not a mean bone in his body. And he was right in front of me, and he got the shot right here in the right arm. And then I went up and I got my shots in that right arm also. But he died within a year of us coming back. And he was one of the ones that, while we were there, in addition to our commander kind of going a little loopy, he did too. He's doing weird stuff, like holding his rifle over his head and walking around and chanting stuff. And it's like, man, this is like really out of character for him. So something was going on. But within a year of him coming back, he was diagnosed with cancer that started in that right shoulder, right there where he got the shots. And then it spread throughout his body. And then I think through some kind of chemo radiation therapy or something, it shot it all the way through his body, and he was gone within a year of us returning. And I wonder if that is related to this. And hey, maybe he had a different lot number than I did. What if I cut in line and I went ahead of him? Maybe that would have been me. I just don't think that that's a coincidence. I mean, I've done a lot with like natural. I spend a lot of money on natural cures. That's one thing I want this money for, is to help pay for all the stuff that the VA or the private insurance prescription plans don't pay for, all the stuff that actually works well without all the side effects usually. And, I've spent a lot of money on those natural things, but I think because I've done that, I think that I've kind of held off the level of the symptoms that I have, that maybe they're not as bad because of that, because I do a lot
what is
with natural supplements.
Mm-hmm. Can I add, so the chronic fatigue, which I definitely struggle with. If you had to say, Mitch, what would you say, in your opinion, helps you out the most for your chronic fatigue? I'm curious.
Okay, well, you picked a bad one, because I have not found anything that does anything for. Now let me tell you this. So another thing is I don't know. Have you ever been to a CMP exam for one thing? Oh, yeah. And you're wondering what's going on, then they call you up and they send you to a CMP exam for something you didn't claim because you said something in the first one. And the VA has a duty to assist, which means that if they hear you say, hey, I got this other problem, they're going to go have you checked out for that. This one doctor, I was going in, this was for the IBS, and she's asking me the Gulf War questions. And you can see on her certifications that she was Gulf War, trained. Very sweet young doctor. And she asked me all these questions, and then she got to the short of breath. I was like, well, yeah, that's the one thing that's like really gotten a lot worse lately. And maybe I can't distinguish between short of breath and just chronic fatigue, but I really do think, that it's a short of breath. Sometimes I can get up from a chair, walk across the room, and sit down, and I'm just like huffing and puffing. Yet other times my wife can force me to go to Sam's, and I can walk around Sam's, and I'm okay at least till I get back to the car. But maybe after that trip, I've got to come back and sit in the recliner for a while in the air conditioning and just kind of veg. But when I was there, so I was there for the IBS, and she asked those questions. But then a couple of weeks later, I was told I had another CMP exam to go, and they're going to send me to get a chest X-ray and a pulmonary function test. And so they sent me to like an urgent care center, and they don't share with you that information that together they want. So I took a snapshot of the X-rays, and then I was self-diagnosing after that, but also took a shot of the pulmonary function test before they give you the albuterol and have you do it again. And then I went back and did my own research. Well, I thought I was going to die, within 6 months. I thought I had pulmonary fibrosis based on those numbers. And evidently they didn't do it right, but it took a long time to get into a pulmonologist. And I've got probably my last appointment with a pulmonologist tomorrow. But I went back to the cardiologist I went to a few years ago in my quest for the answer to chronic fatigue, which I didn't find. And he checked me all out and did every test possible. And that looks good. I got a little blockage like everybody does, but it's not blocking. It's like non-blocking calcification. So that's not slowing me down or anything. So the heart looks good. And you got to tell that to the pulmonologist and share that information with him. And the pulmonologist hasn't been able to find anything except that pulse ox. In fact, the nurse, she kind of did a double take when I was doing the pulse ox, and then she tried a different one. And she got to the third one, and then it was higher on the third one. So I don't know if the first two were broke and the third one was okay or what, but I'm never up, like 97, 98, 99%. But when I was in the office with that particular one, I've got 3 different pulse ox meters at home. Erin, that was on the show last week, she said that that Jason has a watch. I got the watch, the Samsung watch, so that measures it while I'm asleep. Now that I got a CPAP machine, that's good, because I was getting down to like 70% when I did a sleep study. And so my sleep apnea is severe. That's the last claim that I have in, hopefully, and still waiting to hear back on that. But once again, I forget where I'm headed. Oh, so I'm going to find out, what's wrong with the shortness of the breath, and the pulmonologist can't find anything so far. The last test that he wants to do, or he mentioned doing, was having me get in a small room and breathe some carbon monoxide. I know it sounds crazy. He said it wasn't like getting in the garage and sticking your head over the tailpipe of your car or your mouth over or anything, but to see how well my lungs get rid of it. And it's the DLCO. If you look in the 38 CFR, if you have this certain score on the DLCO, then it's a, like an interstitial lung disease or whatever. But anyway, he gave me a pulmonary function test, and it showed that I was okay there. And evidently the people at this urgent care center didn't know what the hell they were doing, but it had me worked up for, 4 or 5 months before I could get into a pulmonologist. And it was like all I could focus on, researching this and that. I learned a lot. If anybody has a pulmonary function test out there, you need me to diagnose you, just let me know.
Yeah, hell no, man. I'll tell you right now, man. Don't look at WebMD. But because when you were talking earlier and stuff, I went to work. I said, you know what? A lot of veterans are on what's called gabapentin, which is called pregabalin. So I said, well, you know what? I want to know what the side effects are. Yeah, that's a first mistake. So I pull it up. Just let everybody know I have my trusty phone here and everything. And so I'm just going to let y'all know that the less common stuff is chest pain, cold sweats, that stuff and everything. Rare common is cough, diarrhea, dizziness, and all that. But the most common, boy, let's get into this. Accidental injury, blurred vision, burning, tingling, and numbness of pain in hands, arms, and feet or legs for neuropathy. And this is for neuropathy. Change in walking and balance, clumsiness, confusion, difficulty having bowel movements, difficulty with speaking, double vision, dry mouth, false beliefs that cannot be changed by facts. Oh yeah, this is the most common.
Yeah.
Increased appetite, lack of coordination, loss of memory, lower back and side pain, painful, urination, poor insight or in judgment. Well, shit, I got that every day. Rapid weight gain. Since I've been on this, I gained 40 pounds. But I needed to, so I'm not bitching.
Well, you look like you still only got one stripe in your pajamas. So
I'm telling you, man.
You could stand to gain a little more.
Now, listen to this. Tremors.
Yeah.
Stabbing pain. Trembling and other problems with muscle conditions of coordination. Trouble recognizing objects. Well, I can recognize one of us got bald head and the other two got hair.
Yeah. Well, I said, who am I kidding? I just get
trouble thinking and planning, unsteady walk, usual drowsiness, usual weight gain or loss. I mean, and I'm over there going, well, why in the hell didn't they tell me this whenever I'm talking about my tremors getting worse since they upped my dose? And that seems to be the problem. I think a lot of vets, hey, just to let y'all know, medications, if you start getting tremors from bad, that's a secondary to your medications. If your clumsiness, you were talking about that. Man, I tell you what, when I first got on Cymbalta, I thought, man, hell, I got up out of my bed, I went face first against the floor. And of course, I get up laughing like, what the hell? And then I fell down my stairs. But the thing about it is the doctors don't tell you the side effects. But what I don't get is here I am on this medication for burning neuropathy in my feet. But yet the side effects most common is burning feet. I'm like, well,
but that's what you're taking it for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I asked the question about the chronic fatigue. I'm using, I'm trying the supplements that we had Dr. Nichols on here, the NT factor, and I've noticed some difference. I've been on it for a short period of time. That's why there's a lot of different things going wrong with our bodies. But the chronic fatigue, it's like, it's ebb and flow, things are going great. And then the wind gets taken right out of your sails, like what the hell happened?
Well, and he said, give that time.
Yeah, right.
And everything. And you've even told me that you felt a little bit different and stuff, feeling better and stuff. For me, the only thing that takes away my chronic fatigue, the only thing is B12 shots. And I because I lose my B12 so fast. But I get the B12, but it only lasts for 4 days. And then by the end of 2 weeks, I'm just like.
Now, I know you said because you don't have those spores or whatever it is in your stomach to process and absorb B12. Right. That's why they get to give it to you in shots. But anybody else that may be low on B12, I looked at my blood work. And that's the crazy thing is they do the blood work and everything looks pretty good, except for the cholesterol, which is, always messed up for most people.
Not me.
Not you. That's good.
Rubbing it in.
Yeah. It's maybe a Navy thing. Maybe
it is.
Don't have the okay. You'll eat a lot of fish. That's probably what it is. Yeah. But the apple cider vinegar, which I couldn't swallow that or anything, but they do. Bragg's makes it in little powdered pills, and it's supposed to give you energy. And I was taking those for a while, and I think that probably got my B12 up. It says like B12, B6, and some other B vitamins. So if you don't have what's wrong with Kevin here, then maybe you can take those and that might help too. I did order the NT factor. I haven't started taking it yet because I run these experiments on myself. And right now I'm using, it's the EFAC, esterified fatty acid, not fatty acid, esterified fatty acid, not, what's the other kind of fatty acid starts with an E? I don't remember. Oh, essential fatty acids. Yeah, it's not essential fatty acids. It's esterified fatty acids, which comes from the source is bovine, so it comes from a cow. And it was for joint pain. Well, I went to in my quest again for finding answers and cures, I went to a naturopathic doctor. I got a full body thermograph and also a heavy metal test where she used some kind of spectrometer or something or another. Sounded like that thing in My Cousin Benny, the FBI agent, used to match the tires or whatever, Hewlett Packard, whatever, chromatic spectra. Anyway, so it told me all the heavy metals, and this is another thing I wanted to share to see if anybody else out there in the Gulf War side effects community has done any kind of heavy metal tests. But I'm like extremely high, like toxic with fluoride, which probably comes from all the city water everywhere. And then, but also mercury, cadmium, and aluminum. And I know thimerosal, which is basically mercury, is an adjuvant in vaccines. I've only had one vaccine since Desert Storm. It was a tetanus shot, is the DTaP. And I'm not even sure why I took that one because I'm so, anti-vax because of all these issues. So maybe the cadmium and mercury and aluminum came from whatever they gave us back then. And I know there's squalene. I've never been tested for that. Anyway, the naturopathic doctor gave me some stuff and it was for cat and dogs joints, but she was having me rub it on my gums because somehow your teeth connect to something and control other parts of your body or something. Anyway, I didn't question her. I'm just like trying to find something that fixes something. But I noticed that I forgot what she was giving it to me for, but my joints where I had the bones rubbing together, those started to feel better after about a month. And so I'm taking that again. And for the past couple of months, I've been dealing with this degenerative disc disease. And I know that I've heard other Gulf War veterans mention that one too, which may be normal when you're 80 years old, but not us that, start having these issues in 30s, 40s, and 50s. But I've been taking that and going to the chiropractor, and I'm about back to where I need to be. I can't, I need to be careful lifting right now. But that seems to work for me. CBD, which has been talked about a lot on this show. And I did order the, again, what's the name
Wild
of it?
Branch.
Wild Branch CBD with no THC. My experience with CBD was that I'd tried all those CBD, hemp based, and I'm in Texas. So you can't get the marijuana based with THC, and then none of that stuff worked. Now there's something called Delta 8 that in the state of Texas is still legal, even though they keep trying to make it illegal because it does have THC in it, but it's made from hemp. So that was the way around it. It's not marijuana, it's hemp, but it has THC in it. Now that one right there, when I was having trouble with my blood pressure continuing to go up, even though my blood pressure meds were increased, that fixed my anxiety. That fixed tendonitis and bursitis in my shoulders, the pain. And it lowered my blood pressure from like 135 over 95 to like 120 over 70. So I was like an Olympic athlete at that point, about 2 hours after I took it. The problem is you can't work after taking that. You can't drive because it makes you loopy. So I'm hoping that the wild branch gives me the same benefits without the loopiness, the euphoric.
Definitely gonna have to let me know on that.
Yeah, so I want to try that. But next up is the NT factor. I'm gonna be doing that and taking that.
That should help your digestive system.
Oh, the NT factor?
It should.
Yeah. Okay.
It fixes that.
Well, speaking of the digestive system, and I know you
that's why I brought this up.
I know that's why you like the segue here. As I'm going down on my list of issues, the anxiety, the chronic fatigue, the tremors. We didn't talk about skin rashes. I got skin rashes, cognitive memory, sleep apnea, tinnitus, high blood pressure.
Oh hell, let's get into the gastro.
The gastro, the IBS. Now this is something that I never really brought up with my private doctor that I had for like 20 years because it's a woman and it's kind of hard to talk about some of these things. But so what I decided to do when I was planning to switch all my health care to the VA, which by the way, I have almost. I got my primary care physician. I've been seeing him for like 6 months. I've had the most wonderful experience with the VA. And this is Dr. Shafiq Khan at the Garland VA. And I don't go sign up with him where I can't get an appointment, but I'm just telling you, he's good. His nurse is good. Everybody there is just very caring. I love how everything's in the app and the meds. I can just click and order, and I don't have to go to Kroger and see what the insurance is going to cover today or not cover. So that's just been a great experience. But the IBS, right? So yeah. So that's something it's kind of hard for me to talk with her about. So I didn't. So I went and saw a gastroenterologist specialized in that because I also had the acid reflux. I knew that was one of the things on the presumptive list too. The GERD, acid reflux. When I lay down at night on one of my sides, it feels like the acid is going to run right out my mouth, and whatever I ate, a couple hours earlier is going to come out with it. So got to make sure to sleep on my back, which is better for the sleep apnea. But the IBS thing, it's gotten a lot worse. Everything is getting worse. And this was before I had my gallbladder out, which I had out about 5 years ago. So it's even worse now with your gallbladders out. By the way, don't eat sausage like a month after you had your gallbladder out. It's not going to turn out well. You can't eat the greasy foods. Trust me on that one. But I often went between Dallas and Houston for business, and I decided to drive and make it a day trip. So I didn't bring any extra clothes or anything with me. I didn't have a suitcase or nothing like that. And I'm driving back home, and it's late at night now, and my stomach starts cramping up on me around Huntsville, maybe like right before. Maybe it's in Conroe. That's where you're at. Maybe it's around Conroe. But I got this phobia about going and using these public restrooms because I'm like germaphobe. I don't like it, and I don't know. I used to not know how people did what they did in there that caused that kind of damage. But I don't wonder that anymore. Now I just know that a Gulf War veteran got in there ahead of me, and that's what happened. But so I want to make it to Buc-ee's, and for everybody that's listening out there, if you're in the South, you probably know what Buc-ee's is. But Buc-ee's is like the largest gas station. It holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the most gas pumps or whatever. Great place to stop, usually on the interstates. And they're headquartered here in Texas, I think down in Houston, actually. One of the first ones was it's halfway. It's closer to Houston than it is to Dallas, but it's on I-45 in Madisonville. So you're going north on 45. There's Conroe. In the next big town is Huntsville, where the prisons are and everything. And then there's nothing until you get to Buc-ee's. And my stomach's cramping up on me, probably between Conroe and Huntsville. And Huntsville is kind of nasty anyway. I tried to stop at some of those places like a Taco Bell or something, and it just didn't work out well. So So I'm going to make it to Buc-ee's because they're known for their clean restrooms.
And they're known. Let's let know.
Yeah, no, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. They got clean restrooms. In fact, they got a whole row of the stalls, and they got a guy that pretty much by the time he gets to the end, he turns around and goes back to the beginning again and just goes down. Each stall just clean. It's all in there. They got the things you put down so you don't catch all the other kind of diseases.
The cleanest restrooms in the world. I promise you.
Yeah. So that's what I was headed for. That's what I was going to. And I get up north to Huntsville, and it's the point of no return. I can't turn around and go back to Huntsville, and my stomach is just cramping up on me so bad. And I also mentioned earlier before we got on the call about the sphincter muscles. I know Gulf War veterans have strong sphincter muscles, from trying to hold this stuff in all the time. But what happens a lot of times, like with a water hose, the sprayer, so much pressure builds up that when it does blow, there's a big explosion. So what happened was, I couldn't make it, and I said I'm gonna sue Buc-ee's because they got these billboards up and down the interstate, and there was one that said you can make it, and it's talking about the restrooms. Everybody knows what it's talking about. You can make it. Hold it. You can make it. And so I want to sue them for false advertising because I didn't make it, and that was a bald-faced lie that they'd put up on the billboard. Well, I didn't have any other clothes to change into or anything like that, and I was eyeing this Northern Tool plastic bag over in the passenger seat that didn't have anything in it the whole time, thinking, well, if this is going to happen, I'm going to have to move quickly. While I'm driving 75 miles an hour up the interstate, I had to reach over and grab that plastic bag and kind of tuck it up under me or whatever, to minimize the damage to the vehicle on the interior. And so anyway, it happened. I didn't make it to Buc-ee's. I was holding in with so much pressure that when the volcano erupted, the lava exited in a couple of different directions, straight up my back. And then I had to refuel when I got to Buc-ee's. So then I pulled out to a pump that's like way out there, and I'm hoping like there's not cameras around or anything. It's the furthest pump away from the building.
You know damn well there was cameras out there. I know that.
It's probably on YouTube somewhere. It's like, look at this guy. What's that all up his back? I mean, it's just, anyway. So I was able to fill up, got back home, and I got home late at night. My wife's already in bed, and she knows I usually for those trips, I just come right in, just shed the clothes, jump in the bed. But next morning, she was wondering, why I came in, went directly and took a shower. And I said, well, first of all, I stopped in the kitchen and got a garbage bag from the pantry and took it in there, and ended up, the only thing I was able to salvage were my shoes. I mean, socks, everything gone, t-shirt, dress shirt. It was destroyed. And, the clothes are kind of expensive. I mean, it wasn't Brooks Brothers or anything, but it's Men's Warehouse. They're not cheap.
Yeah, that's right.
And they all went in the trash bag and got thrown out, and I had to get in the shower and get cleaned up. But I know that, while that was kind of a nasty story to tell, that most people on here can relate to it if you've got IBS. And these things happen, and it's hard to talk to your doctors about this, but you got to. And I was given some medicine, but I want to talk to the VA doctor about some different stuff, because what I got was too much trouble, and you got to mix it up and drink it twice a day, and I don't want to do that. But the way it affects work is you have to excuse yourself from meetings frequently, or if I'm going to travel and I'm going to the airport, I just won't eat or drink anything, because
right.
you usually get all dehydrated, so there's nothing that can happen there, and that's not good either. But it's a serious thing, and we got to talk about these things, and you got to share this with your doctors. But I'm sure my kids can tell you many more stories along those lines or whatever.
Everybody's gone through that.
Maybe I will tell you,
maybe not that long of a drive.
I know, and that's the next thing. It's like, so you drove like another 3 hours.
That's what I was like.
Well, what was I supposed to do?
Nothing.
Go to a car wash? Hey, hope nobody's watching.
I commend you for when you were telling me that story. I'm telling you, I don't think I stopped laughing for about 2 hours after you told me the story when we hung up. But a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, I know I can. And I mean, most people can. If they sit there and say, oh, no, and they have IBS, they're full of crap.
Yeah. Well, and Another thing that's hard to talk about, and I guess I'll go ahead and share this one too, is, you know, on these symptoms and things. One time I went in to see a CNP examiner, I got sent to another one. Well, actually I did a video call. It was a CNP exam for the mental health, the anxiety and stuff. Somehow in there, I must have slipped up and said something, and that CNP examiner wrote down the initials ED. So so we know what that stands for. So then I get the other thing. It's like, okay, they're not ready to make a decision. We got to send you to another CNP exam. Like, what's that for? Well, you need to go for this ED thing. You know, it was caused by, you know, they said I didn't file for this. Of course I wouldn't file for this. I don't want to talk about anything like that.
No, right.
I don't know how it slipped out. I don't know. And then, but you know, when you have these issues and these certain medications for, you know, mental health, they do affect that, and libido and things like that. And anyway, but they make pills for this stuff too. And so anyway, so they send me to this other CNP exam, and they know what they're doing to VA. They're going to try to catch you and, you know, make it where you can't, you know, that they'll trip you up from time to time, right? So what they're doing for these exams is they send you to the prettiest doctor you've ever seen in your life. You know, young lady. She went in wearing a mask, so you know she's very, very pretty, and I don't know what to expect. You know, I did have a woman doctor for my primary care physician, and each year I had a physical, and I would get mentally prepared for what was going to happen when I went in there. And I know women have to deal with this with men doctors and the gynecologist and all that kind of stuff too, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just different. So like with my regular primary care physician for so many years, I'd go in there and then I'd be all mentally prepared for the turn your head and cough. And she wouldn't do that. No, she wants to check the prostate this time. Now, again, because I've got a really strong sphincter muscle, that any false move, she might lose a digit. So she has to be real careful if she's going to check my prostate. But anyway, so I go into this exam, and it didn't take very long, but I was worried the whole time. I'm like, what do they do for that? How are they going to test this out? You know,
Right,
you know,
right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, and it, you know, this doctor, she's like the prettiest medical professional I've ever seen in my life. And I'm going to be like, well, I'm gonna have a hard time convincing her,
Right.
you know, of an issue. But anyway, we got to the end, and she understands. She just talked about the medications and things like that could cause these issues. And she got to the end, and then she said, "Now we don't have to do this, but you know, sometimes we can do a physical exam." And she said, "But that's normally for people that, you know, have had, you know, issues like, you know, maybe they've lost something, you know, in that area." And but it's not really necessary unless you want that. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I think I was on the road about 15 seconds later already, like on the road, going down, getting back home. But what happened in that, and a reason I want to share that is, again, another example of they have a duty to assist. Something came up, they're going to check you out for that. And guess what? I didn't know this, but there's something called special monthly compensation for certain things. I actually get a clothing allowance, and maybe I should look into that for the Buc-ee's trips or whatever for that.
Yeah, bring extra clothing.
But there's another special monthly compensation. They say it's for loss of use of a creative organ. It makes it sound like I'm playing the piano with it or something. But anyway, so she anyway. So that's on there, and so it's special monthly compensation SMC-K, and so it's enough to cover, you know, medications to help with that. So
right, and you know, when I went Monday, you know, I brought my wife with me. I mean, number one, most veterans, just to let y'all know, your best advocate is your wife. If you can bring your wife, I mean, they let her come back there, and they were asking her questions and everything. And so
this is on a CMP?
Yeah, on the CMP.
Okay.
They were asking her, like, you know, what does she see? What are the changes and stuff? Well, hold on. Before I go to this, there's a question by Hawk. has anyone been told that your testosterone levels were not low enough by the VA?
Not low enough.
Yeah, no. I've
What's
never
his name? Hawk?
Yeah, Hawk
I don't know
Turner,
what
as a
Hawk.
matter
I
of fact.
want to know what your diet is.
Well,
I'd like to know.
he said my levels were between 300 to 400, and they would not treat it.
Well, that is that's low according to so in my quest for finding the answer to the chronic fatigue, right before I went to that cardiologist who ended up sending me to the sleep study to find out I had sleep apnea, so it was all worked out really great. I was trying the testosterone, but I was doing the pellets, which insurance doesn't cover because it's all natural,
right?
Kind of, and they'll pay for the shots where you have the ups and downs each week. So my testosterone was like 200, and that doctor's goal was to get it to 1200 or 1300, which is extremely high. You put that in combination with a couple of these other medicines I've mentioned, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. I don't feel like I can be like on one or the other, but I let me put it this way. I was looking to get more energy. And while I didn't have the energy of a teenager, I had the mind of one. So I kind of let that one go. I mean, when you're at the, at the restaurant or whatever, you stand up knocking over tables and stuff like that. I mean, you don't need that much testosterone anymore. So anyway, but at 300 to 400, I mean, that's not.
Wow. Yeah.
So I learned about this from guys that I work with. And some of them were lower than me. They were like 100 and something, but maybe below 200.
So what's considered high?
Well, I wouldn't think 300 or 400 is high, because that the doctor I went to, had me up above 1,000, for or 1,200. Now my wife liked the extra attention, but when you start paying attention elsewhere, that's not going to turn out too good. So. Anyway, we might try to figure something else out there again on that front, but
but I mean, when people go in and y'all take your C&P exams, bring your wives. But what was real funny is because we were sitting there before she realized she was my wife. She said, "Well, I have some I have some sensitive questions that I need to ask Mr. Simon. So do you mind stepping out the room?" And she was like, "Okay, may I ask why?" "Well, there's stuff that we don't want his daughter to hear." And I started laughing. I said, "This is my wife, man. I tell you what made my wife feel great. And not me, but I started laughing about it. But what's funny is, but they did ask questions. They asked, and they're able to tell the doctors that doing the C&P exam or other doctors, because guys are not good at relating information.
Yeah.
I know I'm
also
not.
You can't remember.
Right.
Stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and I got to now I go in with the printed list of my medications, because it takes about an hour to write them out if you have to write them out each time when you go into a different specialist or doctor or whatever. Or just make notes. But you're right, they're there to remember. And most of our wives have, a mind like a steel trap. They never forget anything, do they? Especially when you're arguing.
Yeah. Especially if you accidentally say the words like, "Woo, the Navy was the best 4 years of my life." Woo!
Oh yeah.
I still hear about that.
There you go.
Mitch, I'm really glad that you're able to come on the show. I know we got to wrap it up a little bit. I don't know if anybody has any other questions. I'm going to give a little bit, but do you have anything that you would like to add? And I know you feel very, very strongly about taking, besides, try to stay away from the VA drugs, or not VA, but pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, it's just the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah.
You want to go more healthy. And
right.
I think that's great. But do you have anything that you would like to add? Anything else?
Well, it is expensive to do that. And I will say that, I do a lot of research also. There's even on the NIH website, if you go in and looking at different papers and studies that they've done, it talks about the benefits of CBD, other things too, like ivermectin for curing COVID. or cancer. Fenbendazole is another dewormer that cures cancer. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that that's withheld from us because there's no money in it. I would just say, go do your research. Again, there's a lot of studies on the NIH. That's the government website. I don't know why, the mainstream media, well, I do know, because the pharmacists or the pharmaceutical companies have the commercials on there, so they're not going to mention these studies and things that are helpful that don't cost a lot, of money. Well, they do, because our insurance doesn't cover it, right? But there's a lot of natural cures. I even found a paper for CBD that reduces your chance of catching COVID 30%, and that's on the NIH website.
Right. CBD reduces the chance of catching COVID by 30%. I know I lost you guys on video like 15, 20 minutes ago. I monkey around with it. It's no, it is what it is. But
I just figured your IBS was flaring up on you. And you had to run. But yeah, it's on the NIH website. If you just search for, I don't know if it's nih.gov or what it is, pubmed.nih.gov, where all those medical papers are. I don't know everything that I read when I read those, but I do go through there. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer or a nutritionist, but I can read. And I think you got to do that. You got to take matters into your own hands. The doctors that we're seeing, whether they're with the VA or private, they're not trained in this. They're not trained in nutrition. They're trained by the pharmaceutical companies. That's who pays for all these schools and all the grants and studies and things like that. Because you'll hear like, well, there's no studies that prove that ivermectin can prevent COVID. Well, that's because you're not paying for them. Nobody's going to pay for them because there's no money in it. So that's what I would say, is look for those natural cures. God put everything here that we need, in my opinion. I think that hemp or CBD or whatever he put it here for a reason. We know it's helpful from anecdotal evidence, even if there aren't studies sponsored by major corporations that sell something that's opposite of that. So, be sure to do your own research and stop watching CNN and Fox News and everybody else, and go research for yourself and search for the truth. And I'll say this too, Kevin, if you're a Christian, even if you're not, pray about it, and pray that God would show you the truth while you're searching, whether that's you reading the Bible on your own and not paying attention to what a preacher said that it meant, or the comments down at the bottom, or whatever, or whether you're researching things about your health. And Jesus has already healed us all, whether it's in this lifetime or the next. And you can read about that in Isaiah 53. And I would just say that, just claim that, just believe that. I've seen people healed through prayer. Not sure why he's not healed me yet. Maybe it's because I need to use this to help others, for instance. But I really believe that. And any of you that want me to pray for you, or get on a call with you or whatever, or even come see you if you're near here, I'd be glad to do that. I would be glad to help you in any way, whether that's through the claims process, prayer, whatever. Talk more about what nutraceuticals that I've found that are helpful. So I just want to be able to help. Just let me know how I can help.
Amen. Hey man, I'll tell you what. Well, I'll get to my part, but John, you got any last words, even though we can't see you?
Yeah, no, I just greatly appreciate you coming on, Mitch. Everybody information is helpful. I was just telling my wife, I think every episode, the whole idea is to put information out there, and to help one another. The people those of us who simply haven't been able to put the 2 and 2 together, and maybe are able to get a glance at this. And the bottom line is we're all here to help. And again, thanks for coming on, Mitch.
Sure.
Been a pleasure.
And also along with that, I know Discarded Vet, which is Jason, he is watching, which was his wife who was on last week.
Yeah.
I would like for him to kind of get in touch with you and talk to you, because he's going through so much, and especially with the pulmonary part of it. And so I'm going to send your information over to him if you don't mind.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And everything. Yeah.
And
Jason,
remind me where are they located at?
They're up north. I want to say
Washington State.
I think they're in Oregon. Aren't they?
Oregon. Yeah, Jason's up in Oregon. But you're right. I put my faith in God. This is why I think God made me start doing this. He was like, hey, this, I feel it is my purpose and everything. But hey, go ahead.
I agree, and I would also say that I at times I've done a lot of self-study, myself on a lot of different things and on the Bible and eschatology and things like that. I believe that the Gulf War is outlined in the Bible, and if y'all want to talk about that, privately or whatever, get in touch with me. I could show you how that is, and just a lot of the things that I think that God has just revealed to me in the last few years as I've searched for answers, and I question everything, and then I kind of apply a biblical worldview to everything. At least I try to. I like to say that I'm a disciple of Jesus. Now I'm not the best disciple, but I'm not Judas either. But he's still working on me. I get frustrated sometimes. I get mad at him.
I agree.
But we work it out, and he's got all of our best interest in mind if we just listen to him. So let me know how I can help. My email address is gwisp@proton.me. That's GWISP as in Gulf War Illness Security Police @proton.me. So anybody feel free to reach out to me, and I'll share my phone number, and we can talk and chat anytime. One more thing I was going to mention to you, and I'm sorry we keep going even longer, but one of the things I would like to see come out of this, the Gulf War side effects, is maybe we can get small groups together, maybe call it a 4-man fire team, of people that maybe are in the same area, maybe you're not in the same area, but we can meet, over video or whatever, just to stay in touch, kind of like our own group counseling, because I'm really not aware of any group counseling that's Gulf War specific, right?
I agree with that. I agree with
that. So maybe people can, email into you or to me and say, hey, I'm interested. Maybe start putting some people together and at least make sure everybody's talking at least weekly.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I know John would love that idea too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, everybody, I want to thank y'all for listening to Gulf War Side Effects. I want to, appreciate you, Mitch, for coming on. And John, as always, I appreciate you. But I want everybody to have a good night. And y'all stay safe out there.
All right. Thanks. Y'all too.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
And John, you can go ahead and flush now.
Okay.
Guys, y'all have a great night, man.
All
right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Yeah.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Gulf War Side Effects. If you have any stories you would like to share or just have any comments or questions, please email me at kevinsimon@gulfwarsideeffects.com. Just to let all of our listeners know, we have opened an online store. All proceeds will go to helping veterans connect. The link will be in the description below.